How can you love me? You really haven't seen all of me. You know you haven't seen the side that frightens even me. It's so hard for me to see why you love me.
I would put rap as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to ever come out of the Hawaiian Islands.
He's the man, and he'll always be the man in my head as far as the way local comedy is done in Hawaii.
When he walked into the room, he just lit up the room. He was intense, but he was also very warm and very intelligent.
What I will always remember about Rap was his humility. He would literally give you the shirt off his back, and I have seen him do it.
Oh, I do love you.
I have people in their 30s come up to me. They tell me how much they love Rap. Not loved Rap, how much they love him. He's still a part of their life.
He's probably the only genius I've ever worked with.
Just remember, even though the chicken is tender, the wine gotta remain not too sweet, not too chicken, but just
During his all too brief lifetime, comedian Rap Reiplinger amassed a body of work that has withstood the test of time and earned him a place in the pantheon of the most gifted and influential artists to ever come out of Hawaii. The countless characters and routines he created for the stage, albums, and television were as universal as they were unique to Hawaii. But the man behind the many masks he created is even more intriguing than the characters he invented. For the next hour, we'll get to know that man with the help of those who knew, worked with, lived with, and loved Rap, Hawaii's comic genius. James Kavika Reiplinger, later known as Rap, was born in San Francisco, California on July 16, 1950. He was adopted by a Hawaii couple, Frank and Lila Reiplinger, who raised their son and 2 adopted daughters in Waialae, Kahala.
My father was in the Navy. He grew up in Illinois. He was a stevedore for nearly 40 years. A very loving family man.
He was a Navy pilot. He was from Chicago. He was on the Yorktown. He was in the Battle of Midway. He was a TBF pilot, torpedo plane. Then based here at Pearl. Then he met Lila, and then they married at St. Augustine's Church.
We always did family things together, whether it was beach or picnics. Very involved in all of our lives, as well as with our mom's career in the entertainment industry.
She was the star. She was the star of the Kodak Hula Show. She was the featured dancer. She was the lead dancer. She got to be at the head of all the dancers in a holoku, big giant hibiscus in her hair.
They did not have children of their own in the sense of being born from them, but they raised their 3 children, their own, and they came out well.
He was brought up by a heavy Hawaiian family that knew and understood the true spirit of aloha, which was to give of yourself and to be humble.
Many of the parties was at our grandma's house on Kanikapolei in Waikiki, which was named after our aunt. Always music, always, and dancing. I mean, that was just what we did. Each of us always performed, Kavika and Dee Dee and myself. Family friends were Alfred Apaka and, just so many people from that generation, and they were just always at the house. He usually danced first.
Yeah.
He was always usually the first one to go.
The icebreaker.
Yeah. He had to be the star of the show, and then the rest of us got our turn.
The young Rap loved the spotlight and was an irrepressible ball of creative energy, traits that would later serve him well in his chosen career.
Every time I see him, when they'd come to a family gathering at the top of the hill, he was real busy, active, and running around with those that could keep up with him.
He had created a little routine that he would do with his little sword. And I remember the sword distinctly. It had gem-colored stones. They're fake glass things. And it was a little rubber sword that he would do the sword dance. His version of the sword dance. He was a hoot.
The future comedian displayed unique powers of observation. Even as a child, he was collecting material for characters and sketches.
Dee Dee, we talked about it. He'd catch the bus and ride around watching people behave, and then try to incorporate that into what he was doing.
The housekeepers and the yardmen were Japanese at that time, and they'd be all speaking to each other in Japanese, and he'd be thinking,
what are they saying?
What are they saying? What are they saying? I want to know what they're saying. And so he said, I'm going to learn Japanese.
Nakashima, Shimakuro, Kurosato, Satogata. Oh, got to go now.
From early childhood on, through his intermediate school years at Star of the Sea, Rap was relegated to supporting roles in family and school productions.
My mother produced the May Day program, so we would participate, and they'd be doing their school dances that my mother choreographed. It was a big, big production. My brother was part of it. I don't remember him being particularly a star, but he was, of course, a part, like everybody at Star of the Sea, participated in the May Day programs.
But once Reiplinger entered high school, opportunities arose that would lead to the emergence of his unique talent. When Rap, Hawaii's comic genius, returns, a star is born.
He carries one of the female stars around in his arms and kind of twirls around and a rap expression on his face, and the audience just went wild.
And still ahead,
Halava aka hule hule chicken. Kurengu ala zaka puka puka pants. Blow my mind. Observe the no smoking sign to minimize the chances of blowing up while in the air. Chericha. Hey, Russell, you get pen. What? Pen. Yeah, pen. Right pen.
Rap Reiplinger entered high school at Punahou, a prestigious college prep school with a common teenage mission: to fit in and stand out at the same time.
And Rap he fitted into the class quite nicely. I got to realize there was something whimsical about him. He cracked jokes, always apropos and never unpleasant.
He was a person that mixed and went between different groups and all different types of people, and he was not in one group or another. Now, he did intellectual things, like I remember him playing chess with people, and then he was a wrestler, and he would join the wrestling team, and so he mixed with the jocks or the athletes, and he was also a guy that would mix with cheerleaders and dorks.
He had bad eyesight. His eyesight was 2400 in both eyes. So he could never play baseball, but he turned out for football. He ran through the line and some guys grabbed him around his rib cage, and he was ticklish, threw the ball up in the air. So he didn't make the team.
While Rap tried his best to blend in, It soon became evident that he possessed a rare gift, one that got him noticed by everybody.
He was always a happy person. He would always make everyone around him laugh. And so in that regard, you know, people would kind of roll their eyes back, throw their head back and go, oh yeah, that's Rap, because he'd make these funny comments in class or just around people. He'd jump into his pigeon routine. And so you'd kind of do a double take, like, wow, look at this guy. He's suddenly transformed into a completely different character, and that's what made him so entertaining and popular.
Fortunately, Punahou had the perfect vehicle for Rap's obsession with creating characters.
You know, Rap was a member of the Playmakers at Punahou, and the Playmakers were a group of, just what it says, kids that were interested in acting and developing those skills.
We were doing quite a big quantity of Shakespeare. We did Macbeth and Hamlet, for example. And looking back, I could see how he found the dramatic side much more interesting, say, than the poetry.
He was in so many productions. He was in Finian's Rainbow. There were so many, every play on campus pretty much Rap was in.
While he cut his teeth on roles written by established playwrights, Rap made his mark in an annual production written and performed by the senior class.
I think the variety show is when it occurred to him that he could have everybody looking at him and appreciating him, and he rose to the occasion like nobody.
He stole the show. He brought the house down constantly. I think he ad-libbed considerably. I can't remember what character he played, but a lot of it was off the wall, and it had the effect of juicing up the other performers.
He has one scene where he carries one of the female stars around in his arms and kind of twirls around with a Rap expression on his face, and the audience just went wild.
People were amazed and intrigued and wanting to be around him. It was, he was a star. He became a star then.
From that moment on, Rap knew he was destined to a life in front of an audience. After graduating from Punahou in 1968, he spent a semester at a mainland college, then transferred to UH Manoa, where he was cast in a pidgin adaptation of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, concocted by up-and-coming actor, writer James Grant Benton.
James Benton was innately interested in Shakespeare and Shakespeare's plays and in performing Shakespeare, right? And he asked me if perhaps I could give a seminar wherein students could read the plays aloud and become acquainted with them. And among the people that he knew well and spoke to was Ed Kaihea and Rap.
I've seen them perform at Kennedy Theater. Ed was the Hawaiian god in Shakespeare plays. You know, it's like James was the handsome hapa who went in and out. He was always the leading man. Of course, Rap was the funny one that came in and out.
And I found that once in a while he would read a line, if you follow him, with wonderful understanding, which is what the very talented can do.
He was marvelous, absolutely terrific. And the interesting thing in my view is that even with his marvelous comic ability, he was also able to center very clearly on sequences that had nothing to do with comedy whatsoever and play them fully and honestly, create characters that were essentially deeply serious. So if I were to list, let's say, the top 10 actors, student actors, amongst the thousands actually over the 43 years plus that I've been teaching there, he would absolutely be among that top 10. Absolutely, without question.
Rap would soon make a name for himself in local theater production, especially for Honolulu's well-established children's theater company.
Rap was such a major figure in Honolulu Theater for Youth Plays in the 70s, from the winter of 73, and 2 years to the spring of 75. 2 years, he was probably in 5 productions of 4 shows, so he was almost always on stage because Honolulu Theater for Youth would usually run shows for 2 to 3 months. And he was seen by, well, 40,000 young kids. He had a theater audience that was very huge.
James Grant Benton and Ed Ka'ahea would join Rap in front of that huge audience. And although none of them knew it at the time, they were mere months away from forming the most revolutionary comedy group in Hawaii's history.
The three Booga Boys, as people sort of call them, were all in the Honolulu Theater for production of The Hobbit in the summer of 1975.
It was one of the best things in terms of theatrical performances, acting, theater, stagecraft, that I saw Rap do. He played Gollum, and Kavika was brilliant, brilliant.
Coming up next, Booga Fever sweeps Honolulu.
The crowd was so big that we actually had to lock the door to keep him out.
When we return with Rap, Hawaii's comic genius. And still to come,
Much, much more, much, much more.
by the summer of 1975, Rap Reiplinger, James Grant Benton, and Ed Ka'ahea had appeared together in local theater productions. But the three young actors wanted to do something far more revolutionary.
There was Rap and James and Ed, and we're all sitting around, and they just said, we've got this idea, we want to pull ourselves together and start directing and putting on shows and being a trio, doing combinations of things. And I thought, do it. And I've got the perfect thing. I wanted to do a fashion show.
Rap's unbridled creativity was perfect for this outside-the-box fashion show.
And it was really wonderful because it was 3 acts and it had fashions in it. And it was different. At the end of the show, we had the trio, the tutus. It's Rap and Ed and James, and they're wearing their auntie's holoku and tutus and muumuus, and you know, it's a moment where they're just having fun. And that became one of their signature bits that they kept. And it was really the premiere of Booga Booga in terms of working together.
Booga Booga might have been born at a fashion show, but its first professional gig occurred months later at a legendary nightclub in downtown Honolulu. Benton convinced the owners of Territorial Tavern to let him put together a comedy act that would perform between sets by the club's headliner, Country Comfort.
The initial body of Booga Booga was a 18-piece band, with someone transvestite singing backup. And, you and me, Ed, we're going to do, the Kumulipo in Portuguese. And so I just said that it's a little bit too cumbersome. And so it was just like, well, why don't we just make it more compact, and get Rap in here.
They did a show that night. The crowd turned out. The crowd was so big that we actually had to lock the door to keep him out.
And from that day on, it was lines around the building, which was, the transportation building, all the way around the building to get in the door to see Booga Booga. And they were doing 5 nights a week.
Let's please welcome Felix Pacheco. Felix? Welcome to Honolulu, Felix. How does it feel being on television, Felix? Okay, Felix. You sit down over here. Television. 150,000 people throughout the Hawaiian archipelago are looking at you right now, Felix. TV. Television. How's it? Shaka, 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 shaka. Shaka, shaka.
It turned the face of comedy in the islands upside down. Booga Booga would get up on stage and start to interpret local isms in a way in which I couldn't believe it. I mean, they were taking local stuff that we do every day in our lives and making it funny.
When I saw Rap on stage, together with Booga Booga, I realized that this guy was a genius. I know part of it was rehearsed, but there were little things that he'd throw into it from time to time that would just be that extra little spice that would just really make it a magical moment.
Listen very carefully, contestants. This is our first question on the lead for 1 hour. The greatest king in the history of Hawaii united the Hawaiian Islands. The greatest king in the history of Hawaii united the Hawaiian Islands. The first question on the lead for 1 hour is, what is that king's name?
Hey, you ain't camp the whole game last night. Come on.
That's right, come on, you gotta feel this.
Everything Booga Booga did was scripted to a T, but when there was no assigned response by the audience, we were able to improvise either clarification or in an embodiment of the joke.
Honolulu, the capital of the state of Hawaii, is located on one of the major islands in the Hawaiian archipelago. I repeat that. Honolulu, the capital of the state of Hawaii, is located on one of the major islands in the Hawaiian archipelago. The question on a lead for 1 hour is, what island is that?
Who?
Oh, let's see, Felix, Felix, you got it there, Felix. You win the lead for 1 hour. You got it, Felix.
For the Reiplinger household, this groundbreaking phenomenon that had taken the islands by storm was just a part of their daily routine.
And they were at my parents' house. Holly grew up with them. They hung out, they ate there, they did their laundry, they were
Edward
family,
smashed my father's car.
Then some, yeah, they destroyed the car. Everything. They lived at our house.
I think I was more amazed the first time I went to Booga Booga. First of all, that it was a packed house. Second of all, that all these people were just in hysterical laughter over what I saw every day. You know, it was wow, people are paying to see this, and they're having a great time. And then it was like, well, this is kind of cool because I live with this.
Many felt that Rap was the star of Booga Booga, and his comic creativity could not always be contained within the sketch comedy trio format. And so, after a 2-year whirlwind that had forever changed the face of comedy in Hawaii, Rap Reiplinger announced that
he decided to pursue a solo career. And we encouraged him, and it was congenial. I mean, there was no habutness about it, because we had other comics literally lined up. I call it the School of Booga Booga Comedy.
Coming up next, Rap scores a smash hit with his twist on a classic love ballad.
And no go out with mates tonight.
When Rap, Hawaii's comic genius, returns. By the late 1970s, Rap Reiplinger, along with friends Ed Kaahea and James Grant Benton, had revolutionized comedy in Hawaii as Booga Booga. But Rap decided he had other creative mountains to conquer and left Hawaii to formulate his next incarnation as Hawaii's comic genius.
And he calls me from Los Angeles. And John, is this you? Yeah, Rap, is that you? Where are you? He said, I'm in Los Angeles, kind of hiding out. But I've been writing. I've been writing a lot. And I have some stuff. And I'd like to do an album with you and Mountain Apple Company. And I said, great. You know, what kind of material? He said, let me do some for you. And he read Mahalo Airlines. He read Room Service over the phone. And I was on the floor.
Although they began as audio-only sketches for record albums, many of these classics made it to television in the Emmy Award-winning KGMB special, Rap's Hawaii. The dialogue from routines like Room Service entered the local vernacular and influenced a new generation of Hawaii comics.
I think 11th, 12th grade, I won every single speech tournament because I did Rap Reiplinger's Room Service.
And what room was that?
Room 1225.
1225, and that's a Mr. Frog tree.
No, Fogarty.
Can I help you, Mr. Frog? Russell, cool it. I'm trying to think. Now, wait.
I'd like to order some dinner and have it sent up to my room, please.
And what room was that?
Room 1225. This is Mr. Fogarty. I'd like to have my dinner sent up to my room, 1225.
Okie dokie. And what would you like?
I'd like a cheeseburger deluxe, French fries, and a chocolate malt.
Okay, so that's a cheeseburger deluxe, French fries, and a chorizo. Hey, Russell, you get pen.
What?
Pen.
Yeah, in my head.
Pen.
He showed up at Punahou, where I was a teacher, and he plugged the cassette tape into a player, and we started playing it in this physics classroom. And I said to the students, I remember very distinctly, I said, listen to this recording very carefully because you will hear it again. And they were on the floor in stitches. It was a riot.
The students would hear it again. First, as part of Rap's immensely popular debut album, Poi Dog.
He called me up in the morning saying, I'm doing this photo session this afternoon. Can you do it? I want to be a half man, half woman thing. And we shot it in one afternoon. No one thought this was going to go down in history as being one of the top selling record albums in Hawaii. Who knew?
Not only had Poi Dog become a top-selling record, but singles from the album became huge hits on Hawaii radio stations. Such was the case with Rap's parody of a classic teenage love ballad.
When Fate Yanagi came out, I was on the mainland. I know it was going to be released. When I got off the plane and, made my routine and runs here and there, I mean, everybody was buzzing about, hey, have you heard Fate Yanagi? And it was totally foreign to me because it wasn't released yet. But I mean, by the next, in the next 24 hours, my God, I mean, I thought, what a genius, what a stroke of genius.
Part of Rap's genius was his ability, through audio, to paint mental pictures for the listener. This made the television treatment of album hits like Fate Yanagi a natural progression.
Tell Fate Yanagi I love her. Tell Fate Yanagi I need her. Tell Fate Yanagi no go cry and no go out with Miss Funai.
It cracked me up. I mean, I wondered how some of it would work when I was actually doing it. I thought, they said, all right, you're going to walk hand in hand up the beach and, two high schoolers. And then this shark's fin is going to go across and you're going to go for the shark instead of him. And I thought, really? I loved how it all worked. I loved how it all worked together.
At this time,
The tremendous popularity of Rap's Hawaii and the comedy albums led to live engagements in hotel showrooms. Amazingly, Rap was able to recreate his multi-character routines in front of a live audience.
The first time I met Rap when he was at the Alamona Hotel when he was doing his solo stand-up.
you dang connect. How come I stay you go? Cause what's going on, you come
It was like you're watching like 5 or 6 people on stage at one time. And from that point, I was a fan of Rap.
If you go call, do I make fun of people? I happen to have some notes right here. Do I make fun of people? No.
We leased this showroom in Waikiki called the Ocean Showroom. So Rap would come in and do the opening, and then we'd do the show following it. And then we do that maybe twice a night. Sometimes on the weekends we do shows at 9, 11, and 1. So I mean, it'd be pretty crazy in the dressing room at 1 a.m. with Rap Reiplinger.
I think the one basic thing about comedy is that you've got to have a really firm foothold on what you're doing. You've got to know exactly what's happening. Your foundation should be good.
Sometimes the lines between the stage and the real world became blurred. Such was the case when Rap reenacted his famous flight attendant routine on an actual inter-island flight.
As we're about to take off, I asked the stewardess if Rap could do his Mahalo Airlines bit, and she agreed.
We have about 10 minutes before we hit the Wailuku, so a little bit of airplane humor. There was these two Portuguese pilots driving a plane much like ours, coming in for a landing. The head pilot comes down to the runway and stops abruptly and says, "My, this is the shortest runway I have ever seen." And the co-pilot said, "Yeah, and look how wide." You should have been there.
Rap enjoyed great success with his multi-character comedy albums and television special. But Reiplinger was never satisfied with repeating himself, and he soon delved into projects that allowed him to explore other aspects of his creativity.
I had an idea of doing a kid's story called Dreamer Boy. The only guy I could think of that could really do something with it was Rap.
And I remember him coming in with Henry Capono and practically leading Henry in, so excited he wanted to tell me about this concept. And Rap was writing the dialogue and Henry was writing the music.
And the ship steered its course, and night grew very dark around Daniel and Koa, like a long and restful sleep.
It was probably one of the best collaborations I've ever been in. You know, where we both clicked and we knew what each other was like.
Rap and I wanted to do an album, and he liked the idea of doing kind of a musical approach. We started working on some songs. One of them was called Aswai Hard. It's kind of like a Hawaiian blues song. And we decided to collaborate on the album, which eventually became Towed Away.
Aswai Hard love stay she by. Aswai Hard cause I think a Hawai.
When Rap, Hawaii's comic genius, returns, meet the man behind the many masks.
We had a good time when we'd play poker, and I do remember that Rap used to love to call wild cards. And by the end of the night, we would have, everything would be wild.
In the 1981 KGMB television special, Rap's Hawaii, Reiplinger, with the help of makeup wizard Brian Fuhrer, transformed into 16 different characters.
Bogong! Chajam Tira!
Cruise Kalakaua in the 57 Chevy. Our flight today is under the command of Captain Blaze Kamikaze Robello.
To live life to the fullest.
Let's take a look inside this car over here.
Soya F.
To get to the converse axiom.
Oh, and what was that?
Cheeseburger, French fries.
Oh, yeah, right. Shigeyasu? Yasutake?
On mass transportation.
And he would immerse himself into these roles. And he would do anything really, or go through any sort of makeup to achieve the performance, you know, to achieve the look that would help his performance. Unlike other actors that just don't want to wear the stuff. He would say, no, let's do this and let's do that.
But the man behind the many masks was very different from the larger-than-life characters he had created.
And then around the family, as some people were feeling down, he could lift them. You know, he could uplift them. In terms of private life, I think he was a very loving son and cousin.
If you want to remember Rap, he was a very humble brother, a humble blala.
He never acted as if he was a big star or had this huge ego. He was always sort of the working man's comic.
And work he did.
He was absolutely fearless. He would try anything, would put a different spin on anything, would try it any number of ways until everyone else was exhausted and Rap had the energy to keep going. In fact, if you look at Rap's Hawaii, the Willy Maunawili scene where he visits the construction site, Rap literally fell down that hillside a half a dozen times. We were shooting this thing and I kept trying to get him to stop, but he was so intent on making sure that he got the laugh that he wanted, that had the right feel, that he was just willing to throw himself down this hill endless number of times until we were all satisfied and he was satisfied. So that was kind of Rap's dedication.
If genius is the word that comes up most when describing Rap, the word generous is a close second.
Well, I remember one day we were having lunch, and I said, Rap, that is an awesome Hawaiian shirt. I love that shirt. He goes, it's yours. I went, what? He goes, no, it's yours. Automatic. He always just say that. Automatic. It's automatic. Kavika, it's yours. Kavik, take them. And he literally took the shirt off in the middle of Ala Moana Shopping Center and handed me this shirt. And he was sitting there completely shirtless.
He also loved playing host, often with hilarious results.
We had a good time when we'd play poker, and I do remember that Rap used to love to call wild cards. And by the end of the night, we would have, everything would be wild. Deuces wild, threes are wild, fours are wild, aces are wild, jacks are wild. It would be a wild game.
If Rap was always wild at social gatherings, it was a completely different matter when it came to his work.
Rap used to say, I'm serious about comedy. You really have to practice. You have to mimic people. You have to learn. And then you have to find your own voice.
He was serious, and he'd have a typewriter, and he'd be just wailing on the typewriter. I mean, I've never seen a typist this fast. And he'd be eye contact completely. And he'd be asking questions. He'd be in character, saying these things as he's typing them, but then he'd say, what do you think, John? Is that okay?
Because Rap's creativity was so vast, it naturally spread into areas outside of comedy.
He wanted to do T-shirts. He had fabulous ideas for T-shirt slogans, some of which I still have.
He was also an artist, very talented.
In fact, Rap had illustrated the front and back covers of his Towed Away album.
He loved music, and he really wanted to be a musician, I believe, a legitimate singer, and he played guitar.
And no go out with meats for night. Play the rocket, I love you.
When Rap, Hawaii's comic genius, returns,
everybody was so happy that Rap had met this Waini. Oh, you're falling in love now. What about us, pa? What about us guys?
By the early 80s, Rap had won a Hoku Award, an Emmy, and the hearts of Hawaii's people.
If you think this Nahoku is gonna get rid of me this year, you wrong. Pass on that, Charlie, because I'm gonna be back next year for Best Female Vocalist. Mahalo!
But Rap's tremendous success was undermined and threatened by his addiction to the popular drug of choice at that time, cocaine.
We all were abusing it. He wasn't the only one. We're all stupid.
There was substance abuse. But there were a number of times when he was trying to shake it, too, and get away from it because he knew that he had something, some sort of gift, and he was very special about that. And he didn't want to destroy that.
His life found a stabilizing force when he met and fell in love with radio and TV newscaster Lisa Clark.
He adored her. He fell head over heels. It was almost love at first sight.
But that first sight almost didn't happen. Rap stood Lisa up on a blind date arranged by her co-worker. Months later, Rap was scheduled for a live radio interview with, unbeknownst to him, the very woman he had slighted.
And he introduced himself, and he started telling me what a nice voice he thought I had. And I said, you and I were supposed to go on a blind date. Lan Roberts set us up. And he's like, oh, he said, I thought it was a joke. And he said, obviously I was wrong. Will you give me another chance? Let's go out to dinner tonight. So we did.
Lisa was really a spirit that came into Rap's life. And really, all of a sudden, he was actually losing weight, he was looking good and so forth.
And when he met Lisa, he just seemed really, really happy. and relaxed and just peaceful.
He was the type of person that when he walked into the room, he just lit up the room. He was intense, but he was also very warm and very intelligent. He was very interested in tapping into his spiritual side and getting closer to God. I think he realized that that was something that he really needed to do to help him turn his life around and become more stable.
Rap knew he had met the love of his life and wasted no time.
No matter where we were, Rap had a habit of pulling over the car, jumping out, and picking me flowers. About the third or fourth time he got back in the car with flowers, he handed them to me and he said, "Will you marry me?" And I knew he was serious. So I said, yes, I'll marry you. Of course I'll marry you, yes.
Hoping to escape the glare of public attention, Rap and Lisa decided on a secret, private ceremony.
There were only 8 people there, and when Rap read his vows, he teared up. He was really emotional. It was sweet. And later, afterwards, he kidded me that I read mine like a newscast.
I personally know that because of his marriage to Lisa, he had made a decision to pivot and to rehabilitate himself. We had a long conversation about that.
But hopes of recovery from addiction were dashed in January of 1984, when Rap disappeared after borrowing Lisa's car.
I was a wreck. I hardly ate anything. I think I lost like 5 or 6 pounds. But every day I had to be at work. And I was just drained emotionally and physically. And of course, during that time, I made up my mind, when he comes back, we're going to get him into a program. This is ridiculous. He needs to kick this habit.
But it was not meant to be. 6 days into his disappearance, Rap's sisters and Lisa acted on a hunch.
His sister Dee Dee remembered that he liked to hike in Maunawili. So his sister Holly and I drove around over there, and then we saw my car. And we knew that's where he was. And then the police came with the dogs, and they found him.
James Grant Benton called me. I was in Wailua on the Garden Island of Kauai, and he simply said, "Rap is dead. Rap is dead. They found him in Maunawili. Get over here." It was shocking, and it was a loss, I believe, for the people of Hawaii to lose a genius, a comic genius like Rap Reiplinger. It's just straight up. But personally, for me, it was just a personal loss.
Well, the autopsy at first was inconclusive. It said that there was a darkened area of his brain and his heart was enlarged. And some people said that we all knew he had a big heart. Then the toxicology report came in and it said cocaine overdose.
I was angry for a very long time. Angry at him because I felt at first, it's like because of the stupidity of drugs, now you're gone.
I miss him. We grew up together. We were friends.
After Rap died, I remember walking to work downtown one day, and I was just missing him so much. I was standing at a traffic light waiting for it to change, and I was like, "Kavika, I miss you so much. Will you just give me some sort of sign? I wish you would give me some sort of sign." 2 seconds later, a bird poops on my sunglasses. On the inside of the lens, didn't touch my face. It was right on the inside of the lens. I'm like, very funny, Rap. Coincidence or not, I felt like I got my sign.
When we come back, some final thoughts and an unforgettable musical moment with Rap. Nearly 30 years since his passing, Rap Reiplinger is as popular as ever, thanks in large part to the internet.
All of his stuff is on YouTube. You can remember him just by looking him up in YouTube. All of his classic bits are right there.
He has a Facebook page. I don't know who did it, but he has a Facebook page.
Yeah.
A ton of friends. Like, I think there's like 6,000 friends on there. And if you go to it, it's kind of cool because, you know, this is almost 30 years later.
Everything that any comic does after rap, hey, you got a little Rap Reiplinger in there, you know.
That's why I think he'll never die in a lot of people's hearts because he made his mark, you know what I mean? And he was extremely funny.
Rap will live forever because his greatest gift to the world, laughter, is a force of nature that never fades. We leave you now with a shining example of that gift.
The haunting voice of Orlando Souza, Maui singing troubadour, now on 2 long-playing record albums. You'll hear Orlando sing about Maui, the island he loves best.
Oh, Maui, Maui, the island I love best.
And who can resist Orlando when he sings songs about life?
Songs about life.
Is this all? No, there's much, much more.
Much, much more.
Orlando. And Orlando sings all the songs you like so well. Remember these well-liked songs?
These well-liked songs you like so much. You like these well-liked songs.
And the list goes on.
Endlessly.
And the list goes on. And the list goes on. A now road.
And the list goes on. This goes on. Cause the list goes on. It goes on aimlessly. Much more, much more. Much, much more. Much, much more. Oh, yeah.